Welcome, Bronco Nation, to a game preview that I absolutely did not expect to make. Boise State versus UNLV in the Mountain West Championship game. Mind-blowing. If you're talking about preseason expectations, this was not a team, UNLV was not a team that I thought would get anywhere close to a Mountain West Championship game. And if you're talking about mid-season to even just 2 games ago expectations for Boise State, I had no idea that Boise State would be getting anywhere close to the Mountain West Championship game. And here we are with 2 programs that have had radically different seasons, radically different expectations put on them preseason and throughout the season, playing in a Mountain West Championship game that promises to be one of the most unique and exciting Mountain West Championship games ever. I cannot wait to preview this game. I'm going to go through the series history. We'll talk about key players for both of these programs. I'll talk about 3 keys to the game for Boise State in this matchup, what they need to do to win this game, and I'll summarize at the end looking at both of these programs with a score prediction. So before you get any other further in this video, make sure right now you go pause the video, comment below with your score prediction and any thoughts. I want to have that discussion with you, and I want to hear your score prediction untainted by my own analysis here. So let me know what your score prediction is coming into this game, and we'll have a discussion about it at the end, whether you're a Boise State or an UNLV fan. So let's get into the video here. Boise State 7-5 takes on a 9-3 UNLV team. Boise State playing in its 7th ever Mountain West Championship game. UNLV playing in their 1st ever Mountain West Championship game. So a team that's been here before, been here more times than any other team in the conference, playing against a team that until recently, really until last season, was considered one of the bottom dwellers in the conference, playing against each other. The expectations could not be higher or more different between these 2 programs. Boise State versus UNLV have had radically different seasons. Boise State coming into this game was looking at potentially, coming into the last end of the season, was looking at potentially not even getting to bowl eligibility, and then a coaching change, a coach is fired. Boise State, Adiopoulos. So Boise State 7-5 versus UNLV 9-3. Radically different seasons coming into this game, as previously mentioned. Boise State 7-5 now, but there was a chance 2 games ago where they were looking at maybe not even getting to bowl eligibility. Head coach is fired, Andy Avalo is gone. Interim head coach Spencer Dowson takes over, and a completely different team takes the field versus Utah State and versus Air Force, giving Boise State a 3-0 run to end the season and a chance now to end it with a Mountain West Championship game before going on to play in the bowl game. UNLV, a team that has played well all season, 9-3, a couple of hiccups here and there, but they pretty much from midway through the season onward established themselves as the contender that teams had to look to, as the one that was going to push its way into the Mountain West Championship game. You were going to have to get past them to get in here into this matchup. So Boise State versus UNLV, this is a game that's taking place Saturday, December 2nd, 1 p.m. Mountain Central Time on Fox. It's a game that's taking place at UNLV. Obviously, UNLV with the home field advantage, just edging out Boise State in the rankings. UNLV was a 44.5 composite computer ranking, and Boise State ended up at 55.75. So about 10 spots back for Boise State. They're 11. But you talk about Boise State being on the edge of being in this game or not. They were very, very close to being edged out by San Jose State. The composite rankings for San Jose State, 58.5 points. So Boise State winning this game, or having a chance, winning the right to come play in this game by less than 3 points. Now, this video is coming out before the Vegas odds have been put out for the winner, or before even ESPN has calculated who it thinks is going to win this game. I would expect that Boise State's probably going to be favored, at least by ESPN. That's been the trend this season. But we'll have to see what Vegas does with the home team, who they end up favoring in this matchup. Do they go with the record in UNLV, or do they go with the resurgent Broncos coming into this game? So like I said, Boise State playing in its 7th overall appearance in this matchup, UNLV playing in their 1st, but this is not the first time that these 2 teams have met. Boise State and UNLV have an 8-3 series history between the 2 of them, but 0 wins by UNLV versus Boise State in the FBS era. The first game between Boise State and UNLV was 1972, Boise State winning that game 36-16, and then UNLV would go on to win 3 out of the next 4 matchups between 1973 and 1976 before Boise State got another win in 1977, and they haven't looked back. The 2 teams played again in 2011. Boise State, that was the first FBS matchup between these 2 programs. Boise State winning that game 48-21. And they've actually only played 5 times since that game. So the last time these 2 teams met was in 2019, a 38-13 win by Boise State. But this is a matchup that I've not actually previewed on this channel. My channel came out in 2020. That's when I started doing these videos about Boise State. So since that time, 2020 to now, Boise State and UNLV have not played. So this is a unique matchup when it talks about Mountain West Conference matchups, because these two teams don't play very often and they don't have a lot of tape between the two of them to go back and compare. So this is going to be an interesting one. Of course, first time they've met in the Mountain West Championship game, but also the first time that they've played each other in the last 4 years since 2019. So key players for Boise State, going to start off with Ashton Jeanty. Ashton Jeanty and George Halani, the two of them have come up in my three keys players for most of the season. But right now in this game, I think Ashton Jeanty is going to be my number one key player. 1,136 yards rushing, averaging 6.1 yards average per carry. 1,113 yards rushing, 6.1 yard average per carry, 13 touchdowns. He's had 5 100-yard rushing games and 2 100-yard receiving games, including last week when he had both at the same time. 107 yards at a touchdown rushing and 118 yards at a touchdown receiving for Boise State. Ashton Jeanty has come back 100%. The last game, or 2 games ago versus Utah State, he didn't look like he was completely back, still a little bit rusty, maybe shaking off just a little bit of that injury still. But last week versus Air Force, he got his edge back. He was Ashton Jeanty again, that next level back that Boise State has looked to all season long. Now, George Halani is going to continue to play an important role in this offense like we saw last week, but Ashton Jeanty is that running back that has had this season to build up the momentum, and he brings a slightly higher edge right now, especially between the tackles for Boise State. Now, both backs, like I said, are going to play a heavy role in this game, and I could expect both of them to put up high yardage in this matchup, because I think it is going to be a run focus for Boise State. But Ashton Jeanty, I think, brings that extra level of explosiveness and extra edge that he has developed throughout this season. He has a little more momentum coming into this one. So Ashton Jeanty for me is going to be the number one player for Boise State. Next key player is going to be Taylon Green. Taylon Green's job in this game is game management. He has 2 of the best running backs in not just the conference, but the country, in George Halani and Ashton Jeanty. Both of them are program-defining running backs. They will both be players that Boise State fans look back on and compare future running backs to. And I think both of them have an NFL future. So for Taylon Green, with 2 players of that caliber, it's more about managing the game and allowing them to take over. Taylon Green's job in this game is just don't make mistakes. He's going to have opportunities to add a positive impact as well. His legs obviously are always a threat in the running game. Whether he's the one carrying the ball or not is something you have to take into account. And his threat to run definitely opens up opportunities for both George Halani and Ashton Jeanty in the backfield. And his arm can be used in the passing game and can be used effectively. But when he does, he has got to be making sure he makes the right decisions. If he is able to go through this game with 0 mistakes, let alone whether or not he has a massive individual impact, just not making mistakes will be enough for Boise State to go out and have a chance of winning this game. Ashton Jeanty, George Halani, they will take over the game as the game goes on, and Taylon Green will have opportunities to contribute. But he has got to focus on not making the mistakes. That's been a big factor for him this year, not having the opportunity to solidify himself as the number 1 quarterback throughout the season. It's been Maddox Madsen coming in behind him whenever he made any mistakes or late in games, not giving that opportunity to put together the complete game, splitting reps in practice. He's really coming into the back end of this season almost as if he was restarting the season over, and it showed in his statistical production. 1,526 yards passing, 9 touchdowns, but 8 interceptions, including 2 interceptions last week, which allowed Air Force to hang around in a game that they were clearly outmatched in. He's also put up 346 yards rushing and 7 touchdowns, so he has a role that he can play. But Boise State has got to continue to shape their offense to that role, to what he's able to do, what his strength is. And he, when he's given opportunities, has got to make sure that he makes the smart decision, whether that's the flashiest or most explosive decision. Just making the right one, the smart one, even the conservative one, is going to be better than forcing something and making a mistake. And my third key player is going to be Ahmad Hassanin. What an incredible season this kid from Egypt has had. 48 tackles, 12 sacks, 90 yards loss in sack yardage, negative 90 yards in sack yardage that he's had throughout the season. He has also had a forced fumble, and he's had at least 1 sack or more, multiple 2+ game sacks, at least 1 sack or more 8 games in a row coming into this game. When Boise State schemes it correctly, all they've really got to do is send one extra rusher, and Ahmad Hassanin is going to have an opportunity to break free and get into the backfield. And even without that, sometimes he gets back there himself anyway, even with just a 3-man push. So for Boise State, Ahmad Hassanin is going to be that defensive factor that is going to have a chance to turn the tide in this matchup. All right, for UNLV, they've got some great players as well. Starts off with their freshman quarterback, Jaden Maeva, 2,628 yards passing, 14 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's not played like a freshman this season. I mean, he's had some freshman mistakes, but he, as overall, 14 touchdowns, only 6 picks. He's put up a lot of yards through the air, and he's also contributed in the ground game, 244 yards rushing, 3 touchdowns. I wouldn't necessarily call him a typical dual threat quarterback. I mean, his focus really is definitely with his arm, but he can definitely take off, scramble, be used in the running game effectively as well. Now, the big contributor to the passing game that's helped him have such a great season has been wide receiver Ricky White, 6'1", 1,300 yards receiving, 75 catches, 1,300 yards receiving, and 7 touchdowns. He's 6th overall in the entire country, leads the Mountain West, and is in the top 10 all country for receiving yards this season. So Boise State obviously going to be scheming to find ways to keep him in check, but it's going to be a hard one to do because while he's not the tallest guy out there, 6'1" is respectable. He is a receiver that makes up for it with his skills and his abilities, and he is someone that's going to be impossible to stop. You're really just going to have to try and limit the damage that he does against you in the defense, especially a Boise State secondary that has been inconsistent all year long. And then for defensive-wise for UNLV, it's going to be linebacker Jackson Woodyard, 104 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 2 passes defended, and an interception. Not a ton of flashy statistics, sack yardage, sacks total, interceptions, and not a huge high number there, but total overall tackles, 104 tackles. He's your utility player. He's 6'3", 230 pounds. He is going, once the guy gets past the first level, he's going to be there to stop them in the front 7 there. Someone that Boise State's going to have to scheme against to try and take him out of the picture so these running backs can pick up big yards after they cross the line of scrimmage. All right, so keys to the game for Boise State. Well, number one key, and this one's really more for the fans. I've done that throughout the season because I think the fans have been a big part of lifting this team up and helping them recover themselves and keep pushing towards this ultimate goal of Mountain West Championship game that a lot of people didn't see coming. And a big part of the reason that Boise State's in this spot right now is because the fans have not given up all season long. So my number one key right now, and a lot of this goes to Bronco Nation, is make this a neutral site game. Yes, UNLV has the rights of hosting this game, but Bronco Nation has shown up and supported all season long. You broke, Bronco Nation, a season record for average attendance in one of the worst seasons of Boise State's FBS history. You came out and supported this team no matter what mistakes were being made by the coaching staff, no matter what issues and blunders were being made on the field, you still came out and supported this team. 35,867 tickets sold each game throughout the regular season home games. That you broke the season average, the home attendance record for Boise State. Incredible job by you, Bronco Nation. This team needs you one more time. Obviously, there's a bowl game after this, but they need you to come out and do that one more time. It's only a 10-hour drive to Vegas. Flights are not that expensive to get down there either. It's a great city to go visit. You're going to have a great time. But regardless of all that, this team needs you. You can get there, go up and support. UNLV is not a fan base that is passionate in any way. This is a fan base. You go around Vegas and you ask them, how do you feel about UNLV? Most of them are going to say, who's UNLV? This is not a city that is built around supporting a college program. It's not a college town. Their season average has been close to 22,000, even though they're playing in a stadium that has a capacity of 65,000 people. So it's not a seating issue. It's a lack of interest, despite the record. They don't care in Vegas about this program because it's not a school, it's not a town that is built around supporting a college team. They're more about their professional sports and all the entertainment options that are in Vegas. UNLV is way low on the list of things that people want to go see or are interested in when they get to Vegas. They've got other expectations on them. It's also a big tourist city. They're pulling people in that don't really know anything about UNLV. That's not where they're coming. So their season high in ticket sales was only 25,568 people. So despite having a stadium that holds twice as many people as Boise State Stadium, their season high was over 10,000 less than Boise State's season average in ticket sales this season. So it's not going to take much for Boise State to turn this into a neutral site / home site for Boise State. Really, it's not going to take that many of you to come down and tip the scale in Boise State's favor. And also the fact that there's a equal ticket distribution for the Mountain West Championship game anyway. So Boise State, you can go, your Boise State fans, Bronco Nation, we can go down there and we can show up and we can make this a neutral site and push our team to this win. Boise State, the players, this key is also for you, coming in and making this stadium your home, dominating, making it feel like the blue. This is about coming in and playing with the environment of this isn't a road game. This is us playing in a neutral site. It's like playing in the Vegas Bowl. That's what this is. You're going and you're playing in a bowl game before the bowl season's even started. Go down there. Don't feel the intimidation factor. Make this place your home. And a lot of that's going to come down to Bronco Nation showing up and supporting this team the way that it needs to be supported. So, number one key, make this a neutral site game. The boys need you one more time, Bronco Nation. Go down, show up, and support the way you have all season long. They deserve this. And honestly, as a fandom, you deserve this, Bronco Nation, to go down and enjoy this game and enjoy this atmosphere after everything that has happened this season. Key number 2, sprinkle in the deep pass. Now, you heard me say, I think this is going to be a run focus, and this team needs to play to their strengths. I am not saying that Boise State should make this a pass-heavy attack, that they should make this a game that leans on Taylor Green's arm, or is built around his arm. They definitely should not do that, because that's not his strength, that's not the team's strength. They're very weak right now in wide receiver. Eric McAllister, no longer part of the team. Injuries across the board. Cobb, preseason to Latrell Caples. You know, Boise State is weak right now. They have a couple of young, exciting wide receivers, but they're also young and they're still developing their route running abilities. So the offense is not set up to support the passing game. I'm not saying go out and make this a pass-heavy attack, but you still have to have the element of the deep ball in there. Last week, Air Force, they were bringing everybody down to the box. Those safeties were 10 yards or less from the line of scrimmage on most of the plays. They were coming because they knew Boise State wasn't going to try and throw against them, because they just knew that wasn't their strengths. But Boise State still got to do that somewhat. Still make the offense focused around what is Taylor Green's strength, what is the offensive line strength, what is your roster strength, your running back, your deep running back room. Still make this a run-focused option that uses the option game for the quarterback, uses a little bit of RPO, focuses on the short, medium-range pass, incorporates the tight ends. That's what this offense should be doing. But occasionally, every so often, you have to go deep. Now, I'm not saying that this needs to be a force the ball into the player's hands situation. This could be you send Austin Bolt out on a go route and you throw it deep and you overthrow him. That's fine. You don't have to make a lot of deep completions, but you have to have enough deep throws, whether they're caught or not, to make the secondary think, okay, we should back up just a little bit on this one. Just enough to keep them a few yards further back from the line of scrimmage, playing just a little bit softer, because Austin Bolt, Prince Strong, they can burn some guys. Especially Austin Bolt. I mean, he is an absolute lightning bolt out there. So if you don't play those guys right, they're going to beat you deep. And Taylor Green, while the accuracy is an issue, he has the arm strength to get it out there. He kind of throws a lot of balls, but it's not because his arm strength's not there. I think it's just because he's struggling with accuracy in the ball placement. So if he can focus on throwing it deep, even if it means overthrowing a guy, some of these players, Austin Bolt especially, will be able to go out and get those passes. You won't throw picks because you've overthrown the ball. Overthrown passes are less likely to be picked than underthrown. And you will force the secondary to push back a little bit. That's all I'm saying. Soften up the secondary a little bit with a few more deep throws. Don't make this a pass-heavy affair. Don't have 30-plus passing attempts for Taylor Green. Focus on the running game. Make that your bread and butter. Pick up yards in the ground game. That's what the offense needs to do. But you still need, every so often, on second down or maybe on a first down after a big play, you still need to have the deep passing game as part of the factors that the defense has to look at. There are vulnerabilities for this passing game. UNLV has given up close to 240 yards passing per game. On the flip side, there's also vulnerabilities in the run game. They've given up over 150 yards rushing per game as well. So Boise State, I think, will have success in the run game. But this secondary for UNLV, they're vulnerable. They've given up almost 240 yards passing per game. And especially if they think you're going to come out and just run the ball, there will be some opportunities to go out and throw that pass deep that UNLV will not be prepared for. So you might be able to make some big momentum swings as well. But the point is, regardless of how UNLV is covering it, you need to throw a couple of deep passes out there to push the secondary back. All right, key number 3, final key to the game. It's been one that has been throughout the season a key that has popped up, but bring the blitz. I don't think this is something that really has to be emphasized, but I'm going to say it anyway. Boise State secondary has had issues. Again, it goes without saying. But the last couple of games, they have looked explosive and dynamic. And the biggest reason for that is because finally, after multiple games of not just me, multiple people saying, why aren't we blitzing? Why aren't we bringing more dynamic blitz packages? Why are we only pushing 3 so many times throughout the game? After so many people, including myself, saying that, Boise State, post-Andy Avalos, so maybe he had something to do with it, post-Andy Avalos, the last 2 games, has finally committed to the blitz, has finally committed to bringing pressure, and it's been a completely different defense. This Boise State defense suddenly looks strong, explosive. They're forcing turnovers versus Utah State. They had 4 turnovers forced, 2 picks, 2 forced fumbles versus Air Force. They had multiple sacks. They had 9 sacks versus Utah State. They still had 3 sacks versus Air Force. So that's not a team that's passing very much. Pretty much every time Air Force tried to throw at all, there was somebody in his face. They only completed, he had more completions than Air Force should have because Boise State secondary still has issues. But they were forcing the quarterback to think twice. And you're coming up against a freshman quarterback here. Now, it's a freshman quarterback who's played well. It's a freshman quarterback with experience coming into the end of the year. But he's still a freshman quarterback. You take away that quarterback's time. You take away the opportunity for him to have a second to think. He's going to make freshman mistakes. It's also a UNLV team that you know is going to come and run the ball down your throat. They have averaged 187.8 yards rushing per game. So almost 200 yards rushing per game. It's a major focus for them. The passing game is still a part of their offense, 236.8 yards passing per game. You saw the stats that I threw out before the game. But this is a freshman quarterback. If you start putting pressure on him, he's going to make mistakes. It's a Boise State secondary that is going to struggle if put out on islands for too long. If you can limit the time in the pocket, Boise State has some dynamic blitzers, some incredible blitzers on the defensive line. You've got some incredible guys like I talk about Ahmad Hassanev, but you've also got some guys that have risen up recently, like Freely, who can just go out and make turnovers. He's had forced fumble in the last 2 games. He's had at least 1 forced fumble in the last 2 games. Boise State has some great guys on this defensive line. They have some incredible linebackers, and they have some secondary players that love to get back in the backfield and get a little bit dirty with it. They love to have a chance to go after the quarterback. They're fast. They're great tacklers. Alexander Tubner is one of the best tacklers on this team. You give him a chance to go down and make a big hit. He loves that. Boise State's secondary, their whole team is built around the blitz, and I am so confused why they didn't focus on it all season, but the last 2 games they have, and they've had incredible success. Coming into this game, don't change anything. UNLV knows it's coming. They've seen the last 2 games. They've seen the shift. But I don't think they can stop it. I think there's very few teams out there that can stop this Boise State blitz when it's being called correctly. I think there's very few teams out there that even if they know it's coming, can stop it. So Boise, and the fact is, if you don't bring it, this Boise State secondary is going to get picked apart. You've got an incredible wide receiver. He's not the only one on this roster, but you have an incredible wide receiver who is going to find opportunities against you deep. It's not your strength. You have to limit that deep threat. If you give up some medium-range short passes, force off UNLV to extend their drives, that's great. But if you don't bring this blitz and you put your secondary out there, they're going to find opportunities to beat you deep and to get that momentum. And even though this isn't going to be necessarily a full home field advantage, you don't want them to start feeling that Vegas luck start rolling in their veins. You want to reduce the opportunities for the big play, and that's all going to come down to the blitz. So for Boise State, 3 keys to the game: make this a neutral site game. That one's mostly on the fans, but it's also on the mentality of the players. Sprinkle the deep pass. Don't rely on it. Don't focus on it, but make it a part of this offense still, whether it's successful or not. And key number 3, bring the blitz. You got your T-Dog is named Blitz. Let's rely on that energy coming into this game. All right, summarizing this matchup, UNLV has had the easiest schedule in the Mountain West. Their one challenging game was Michigan, a game they lost 7-35. But they've had the easiest schedule in the Mountain West. They're 9-3, a large part because of that incredibly easy schedule that they faced this year. There are some similar opponents that we can look to between Boise State and UNLV. They did beat Colorado State, a team that Boise State lost to, only barely though, 25-23. And there was a lot of other factors in that Colorado State game that led to the loss, and one of those factors is no longer part of this team. Fresno State, a team that Boise State also lost to, they had about a similar margin, 31-24. Boise State lost that game by 7. However, Air Force, a team that Boise State just beat by 2 scores, would have beat them by 8 points. 27-19, but they would have beaten them by a lot more if Boise State had allowed them to stay in that game. They only barely beat 31-27, 5-point game. 4-point game. Man, my math is so bad coming in the back end of here. But 31-27 versus Boise State beating them 27-19, and really that game should have been a lot wider than it was. So Air Force definitely pushing UNLV a little bit more than they pushed the Broncos. And San Jose State, that's the big one. They lost that game, 37-31, and Boise State won that game 35-27. Now, San Jose State was more motivated coming into that matchup, for sure. Definitely more motivated coming into that matchup. San Jose State had a lot more to lose. UNLV knew win or lose, they were definitely into the Mountain West Championship game. So you can excuse them a little bit for that. But my point is not that UNLV is this terrible program. My point is not that they are below the Broncos. My point is that even though they're 9-3, they're a lot closer to the 7-5 Boise State Broncos than things may show. This 7-5 Boise State team is much better than a 7-5 record. If it wasn't for Andy Avalos, I absolutely believe this team would have at least 9 wins, probably 10 plus more, probably be in contention for the New Year's Six game. This roster for Boise State is too good to be sitting at 7-5. The reason they're 7-5 is not because of the depth chart. So while it might seem like a major disadvantage or a major mismatch between a 7-5 Boise State program that eked into this bowl game, in this Mountain West Championship game, versus a 9-3 UNLV program that at a certain point really rolled through and had no doubt they were going to be here, the gap is not quite as wide. Boise State's had a much more challenging schedule, as has the rest of the Mountain West. They are pretty even, pretty close on the programs they've played. I mean, it's a pretty even result. Boise State beat some teams, or a team that UNLV lost to. UNLV beat a team that Boise State lost to. Between Colorado State and San Jose State, that comparison. And then Boise State lost, and UNLV both lost to the same team and beat the same team. Lost to Fresno State, but beat Air Force, and by similar-ish margins. So these teams are pretty evenly matched. But I definitely think that Boise State is coming at a stronger momentum right now, coming into this game with stronger momentum than UNLV is. So UNLV team that's very dependent on a number one wide receiver in Eric McAllister. Not Eric McAllister. They're Eric McAllister type receiver here, Ricky White. Like Boise State was for a large part of the season, being reliant on Eric McAllister. There's no established primary back. And that I think is a disadvantage. They have 3 great backs that can do it. 449 yards for one of them. 501 yards for the second, and 667 yards. But there's no established running back for UNLV. It's really kind of whoever's feeling it the best in the game. And while Boise State's got a little bit of a similar situation between 2 running backs that they're fielding, there's definitely a different level of those 2 running backs for Boise State versus the 3 running back system that UNLV's running, because no backs really established themselves. The biggest disadvantage for UNLV is that they just have a dispassionate fan base. Nobody cares about UNLV Rebels in Las Vegas. They just don't. It's a very different support system, almost non-existent for this program. I mean, they probably have the worst fan base in the Mountain West. And I'm not talking about how the fan base interacts with the teams and that kind of thing, because if we're going to talk about worst in that context, we're probably talking about Nevada, Reno. But as it comes to support, UNLV's probably got the least amount of support from the fan base of any program out there, for their football, at least. Boise State, on the other hand, has a lot of momentum coming into this game. They have changed everything after the departure of Andy Avalos. This is a completely different team. They're used to this stage. This is not something that's new to them, new for UNLV, but this is where Boise State belongs. This is where people expect them to end up. And the players that they recruit to Boise State expect to end up here. They have, UNLV on one end of the spectrum has probably the worst fan base in the Mountain West. Boise State has the best fan base in the Mountain West, bar none. One of the best fan bases in college football. So that is a major advantage. I think that fans play a huge role in determining the outcome of games. I absolutely do. I'm all about the 12th man mentality. So for Boise State, the fact that their fan base is so much further and far away than above UNLV, I think is a major advantage for the Boise State Broncos. And then you have to talk about motivation. Obviously, UNLV is motivated to win this game. It's at their home stadium, a stadium they rent, the privilege to play at. Which, interestingly enough, they don't sell enough tickets every year to actually make back the money they put into the stadium. So they're losing money on their football program every year, at least from a ticket sales perspective. Again, shows the lack of interest or commitment to this team by the fan base. But you talk about motivation, this program's obviously motivated to win this game. First Mountain West Championship game they're ever playing in. There's a lot riding on this. But Boise State, you talk about a season where a team needed to win a Mountain West Championship game. That's this year. After everything that has happened to Boise State, the players need this. They are craving this. This is not something they expected. Really, I mean, obviously preseason there was expectations. I say players are recruited to this program expecting to go play for Mountain Championship games, but there was a point where nobody expected this. And while I can't speak for the players themselves, I'm sure that there was a point where they did not expect to be here. So the joy, the exuberance of this opportunity, this nothing to lose mentality. I mean, you're 7-5. There's no, New Year's 6 on the line here. You win or lose this game, I'm not going to say the results are the same. You go play a Power 5 versus probably some mid to lower level Group of 5 team. But in the end result, it's just the Jimmy Kimmel Bowl, whatever. So there's not a lot to lose, but there's everything to win. When you talk about what will define this season for these players, they said we don't want to be or Spencer Danielson I think said it, but they said this team has said we don't want to just be a footnote. We want to be a program that is remembered. We don't want to just be that one weird season in between before things got better. We want to be the building block, the basis of the future. And it all starts with this game. This team has been through so much. I don't know if I've ever seen, not just a Boise State, but any Mountain West team that wanted to win, that needed to win a Mountain West Championship game so much as this Boise State Bronco program. Both these teams will be motivated, but I think motivation plays a big role. And this Boise State Bronco team, I think, is going to be slightly more motivated than UNLV because of how this season has gone and outside factors coming into this matchup. I also just think the roster of Boise State's better. Like I said, this is not a Boise State roster that should be 7-5. It's not their fault that they're 7-5. The person responsible for that is no longer part of this team. So this is a Boise State team that's 7-5, but they are so much better than that 7-5 record. Conversely, UNLV is a program that's 9-3, but I don't think they're as good at that 9-3 record. I think a lot of that has to do with their schedule and how easy it was for them. So while these teams are much more easily matched, Boise State's roster is better. They have better players. They have better depth across the board in certain positions. They're also weak in certain positions. But I just think that this program for Boise State is on such a higher wave, not just of momentum, but also of potential than this UNLV program that is, until recently, until last season, was a true bottom dweller in the Mountain West, in the Group of 5 in general. It was one of the worst teams in the country. Now, they're not that program anymore, but they're not recruiting at the level that Boise State is. They're not bringing in the caliber of player that Boise State is. They have definitely improved their recruiting, but they are not bringing in the same caliber of player that Boise State is. Spencer Danielson has these players achieving at a much higher level than Andy Avalos. That's because he's unlocked their true potential. He's taken away the anchor that was holding them back, and they are showing what they're truly capable of. Now, this will be the toughest challenge of the 3 games so far. Utah State and Air Force were both struggling. They had injury issues they were coming into the game with. Both of them were kind of falling in a downward trend. UNLV is not. This is going to be the toughest challenge. But Spencer Danielson has shown his team to be more prepared for the Utah State Air Force game than any Boise State team coming into the back end of the season. He's shown his team to be more prepared than Boise State has been at any point this season. And they're going to be prepared for this one. So when I look at the factors for this game, when I look at the player matchups, when I look at the fan base matchups, when I look at what the expectations are for both of these teams, when I look at all the outside factors, I see a Boise State win here. I absolutely do. There's something about college football sometimes where you seem to get trapped up in the storyline, the destiny, and Boise State just seems to be destined to win this game. I mean, look at the storyline. Boise State One of the worst seasons in their FBS history, headed for not even bowl eligibility. A coach gets fired and the team suddenly transforms and now has a chance to build towards something so much bigger. I mean, this is what college football is all about. This is what the 2007 Fiesta Bowl was all about. Different context, but that storyline, the story, it's not scripted, but it seems like Boise State is headed towards getting this Mountain West Championship win and building towards something better and brighter. And I'm not basing my analysis, my prediction on that feeling. It's based on everything else that I said. But that's part of it. It's there. So I think Boise State's going to win this game. I am predicting a Boise State win 37-21. I think that they are going to come in and establish themselves early. I think that UNLV will hang around a little bit, but then Boise State is going to catch fire. And a lot of it's going to be the inspiration that the fan base brings. And they are going to blow this team out. And I think it's going to be a 37-21 win for Boise State. As they end the season, they get to the championship game that they were predicted to get to, but not in the way that anybody thought they would. And they end the season the Boise State way. This season has not looked like a Boise State season for the most part, but they're going to end it like a Boise State season with a chance to go play and beat a Power 5 program. So thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. I'm sure UNLV fans will not be happy with my prediction in this one or my analysis, but I want to have that discussion with you. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you think I was off on my prediction, which I'm sure you do, and let me know if you think I'm off on my perspective of your fan base. So if any UNLV fans are out there and watching this video, which again the odds are not great because there's not that many of you, but if you are, I would love to have that discussion with you in the comments below. So thanks so much for being part of this experience, Bronco Nation. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, and as always, win or lose, and I apologize if I've been coughing a little bit throughout the video. I'm definitely coming down with something, but I was going to get this video out regardless. So thanks so much for watching. Win or lose, regardless of who the head coach is, regardless of what the future looks like. Go Big Blue!